My name is Pam. I'm from Venezuela, coming via Norway/Brazil, and today I will tell you the story about James, who I met as young, and I will tell you what I remember today, May 2nd, because time has passed. So, what I want to tell you first is that ever since I joined the Enye project around 6 months ago, I started doing a series of experiments, and I started to see James' digital footprint, through which I started to learn about them. And uh, as time passed, I'm interacted with James through social media, through WhatsApp, and they gave me their consent to be their mediator. So I must let you know that what I will share with you has sensitive content, including mental health challenges, suicide attempt, and LGBTQ plus related experiences. So James, let's start. James was assigned female at birth when they were born. And although James has a uterus, they don't identify as a woman. Because James is a non-binary trans person that identifies with the pronouns they, them, and sometimes they still use the pronoun he because it's hard for people to understand that it's not binary, and because they refuse to be identified as a woman, they rather use the pronoun him. James was born out of a mistake because they were not a planned child. So actually, in order for their mother to not be sent to Argentina, their parents got married in Paraguay, and 5 years later, James had a sister who's an EMAP, so it's like an assigned female at birth. They don't have a very strong relationship. But what James told me is that they remember that when they were born, the sister was like this very red, scary thing, and it was like the smell of the hospital wasn't pleasant, so they left that day. Soon after that, their parents got divorced, like after 8 years of marriage, and James decided to stay with their dad. So it's difficult because at they are now, like, James is now 25 and they haven't seen their mom for the past 5 years. James told me that one of the memories that they collect is that they would spend many hours inside a car because their dad would be working, so they had to stay with them, and so they would spend a lot of time in the car. And because, like, James was bored, they started looking at the things that were surrounding him differently. So this was the first time in which James started to find and play with frames, and that was the first machine that James understood the camera, and that's how James started his art life. As James grew up, he faced a lot of individual challenges. So when James was 11 years old, they hid under a bed to attempt suicide with a rope, and it wasn't it, it didn't happen because their young sister randomly showed up, preventing them from committing suicide that day. But James is aware that this is something self-inflicted. So James has had experiences with acid and has been closely observed and feared because of the police, and has endured many hardships. So I think as a kid, James thought that they were gonna die by the age of 13, and it didn't happen. They were convinced that they would live until the age of 23, and that also didn't happen because James is now 25. So now they think that they will only live until the age of 40 years old, and I think that's because, in a way, James wants to claim agency over their life and decide over their life. James has experienced a lot of repression and endured mental health challenges because of it, as a non-binary person, as a marginalized person in Paraguay. So over the time, James has been going to art school in downtown Asuncion, and they have learned a lot about survival. So half of James' income, which is like less than $100 per month, comes from street fairs and markets, and they get the other part from their father, who is a person who he has lost total communication and emotional connection with. So sometimes, James struggle. And I don't know if you know, but in Paraguay there's a lot of mango trees because we're kind of like in the tropics. I mean, it's subtropical, but whatever, you get me. And when James is in financial struggle, they pick up mangoes from the trees for free, but they don't steal. So James even has like a map of fruit map of fruit trees in downtown, so they know where and when to find the fruits from the streets. At the same time, uh, James has taught me that surviving is not only feeding oneself with like food, but also through the identities that you have. And James has many identities. So I don't know if you're interested in to knowing about James' life. You should definitely check them out on their Instagram. So one of them is called I'm Eatable. The other one is James the Jams, where you can find them their art. The other one is Psycho Girlfriend, and the other one is Chico Chota. So it's interesting because Chico Chota actually it's a badass cartoon that represents the patriarchy's pulse suffocating the non-binary self, and that's very representative of what James feels, because in a very patriarchal structure and place where there are institutions that do not recognize your identity, as James is a trans non-binary person, it's very difficult to live. So you feel suffocated. This character is called Chico Chota, is also called non-binary tenderness. So it's kind of like, it's ironic because it's such a violent form of discrimination, and this is a tender character. So yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. So yes, James struggles to live in a binary country. Well, they're not binary, but I think there's hope. I remember once I got to know about the fact that James is asthmatic, so they were struggling to find the inhalers, and it took a tweet, and some stranger gave them an inhaler. So that gives me hope for humanity. Although James still feels that they exist in forced ways, it takes a matter of acceptance and self-love and struggle, but also transformation, because through art James continues to transform themselves, and that's very powerful. I remember something about like there's this word, a new word, I think is karaku. So it's the word for essence, and that's the word that James says that identifies them, because it's the climax of their spirituality. And I think that's what I take with me about James' story, about how it's so important to find one like owns essence. Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about the project, please check out the web page or follow James. I hope we get to learn about this. Thank you. Bye.